Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever students are in the world. My name is Jack Zisler. I am very fortunate or lucky to be able to present to you about studying in the United States. I think you'll find this webinar quite helpful. We'd like to keep it interactive with questions, so at the end of my presentation, if you have questions, please let me know, and I'd be happy to answer them. So first of all, a little bit about myself. I live in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. I work for Access American Education, who is sponsoring this webinar, and I help students find scholarships to study in the United States. That's what I do. So, can everyone see my screen? I take that as a yes. Okay, so let's start. So why should you study in the U.S.? First of all, studying in the U.S. is very, very popular. You can see the statistics here. It's really the #1 destination of any country in the world. More students choose to study in the U.S. Than anywhere else. Excuse me. And the trend is continuing. So more and more students are choosing the U.S. for a number of different reasons. So we'll look at some of those as we go through the presentation. Okay, so if you look at this slide, there are really 5 reasons why one might want to study in the U.S. The first one is commitment to excellence. I think most rankings and most people realize that studying in the U.S. Is very popular for a reason. U.S. schools are known for being the most highly ranked in the world. It's really, no matter where you look in any number of different rankings, it's pretty consistent that U.S. schools are known to be the best. The second reason is flexibility. I think you have a lot of different choices, and we'll talk about some of those as we go through the webinar, but in terms of flexibility, you could go for 2 years, you could go for 4 years, you could stay for a master's degree or a PhD. So there are a lot of different types of courses. You could study English in the U.S. So there are a lot of different types of courses that are available to students. So I think the flexibility is something that makes the U.S. stand out when you look at American education versus other countries. The third area is financial support. I think this is important. I know it's important to students. I see it every day in my office. By the way, I counsel students all the time for a number of different schools, programs, everything in the U.S. And inevitably, the first question people ask me is about financial support or scholarships or financial aid. Or assistantships. So financial support is very, very important. I think the U.S. Knows this and does it better than any other country in the world. There are a number of different scholarships or assistantships or financial aid packages available for students. So whatever you think about your background or what's available, it's important to use somebody that you can trust and sort of, I would say, leave anything that you think or that you've thought beforehand, or you might have heard or read. Leave that behind and talk to somebody who knows. Our company is an expert at looking for scholarships, and that's what we like to do. Okay. Myself, I went to schools in the U.S. I had no money from my family, zero. Okay, so I had to find a full scholarship to study, which I was able to do, and it's not easy, but I take pride in helping students find scholarships, and that's something that we're good at AAE. The fourth area is job opportunities. I think when you think about, we're going to get into this later as well, but having the option to work, which you can do, we'll talk about it later, for 1 year, and in some cases, if you're sponsored by an employer, longer than that. And another area is going back to your home country, whether it be Vietnam or Russia or anywhere in the world. You know, a lot of the Fortune 500 companies and international companies are based in the U.S. And even if you don't work for one of those companies, if you can get some practical experience through a co-op or an internship or another area, it will help you immensely get a job when you go back to your home country. So that is another big reason why people choose to study in the U.S. The last reason is what says here, value addition and cultural enhancement. And I think this is, it's hard to measure this, but it is really important. It's about the experience. When you come to the U.S., you meet students and teachers and peers and friends from all over the world, in addition to studying English and learning in English, but the overall enhancement to your life is difficult to put a price tag on. So this fifth area is sometimes not thought about by students, but it's something that's very, very important for the rest of your life. It will carry forward to your career and the way you handle yourself around other people. So these are kind of the main reasons why you might want to study in the U.S. So where should you study in the U.S.? There's really, as I mentioned in the previous slide, there are a lot of different options for students. The first one listed here is a community college. Community colleges are two-year programs where you earn a degree called an associate's degree. Community colleges are really typified by a number of things. Number one, usually lower cost. A lot lower fees, tuition, and living expenses than a larger university or a college. Another factor aside from the lower cost is admissions policies that are more open. So you may, if you don't have good English yet, or if your grades are not that high, you may choose a community college. A lot of kids choose community colleges coming from overseas. They're a great place to get started. There is no stigma, and by stigma I mean there is no negative perception about starting in a community college, because after 2 years you can transfer to a four-year university. And many, many students do this. It saves money. It helps you build confidence. It helps you improve your English. It helps you get adjusted to life in the U.S. All of these things are really, really important. When you first arrive in the U.S., it's difficult. You may not know how to set up a bank account or buy the right clothing, or, you know, a lot of the things that you take for granted in your home country are more difficult. So community college has a lot of benefits, and I would say the number one is the lower cost. But it is important to overcome the feeling that community colleges are not, you know, they're not good enough, or it's a bad. It's that those thoughts are not true at all. The second thing listed here is a liberal arts college. One example, Berkeley College in the middle of New York City is a very good school. Liberal arts colleges are typically smaller in terms of their class size. They often have a more of a community feel, higher teacher-to-student ratio. These are smaller campuses, not focused in a specific field or major. So, you know, if you know that you want to be a mechanical engineer, you probably are not going to choose to study in a liberal arts college. There is a higher emphasis on things like philosophy, history, literature, things like that, which ultimately create a more well-rounded candidate. It is important to learn those subjects, and many students choose these types of environments because they're just a wonderful community feel. You may have seen some of these types of schools in the movies. So liberal arts colleges are for people that, you know, maybe are not sure of their major or what their field is right away and want or desire a more community feel. Lastly, we have a comprehensive university. Drexel University, located in Philadelphia, is a prime example of this. Wonderful school, has a large range of programs and studies, a large emphasis on research. So great programs in business, in engineering, in the sciences, and that comes from a lot of different reasons. It comes from faculty that are trained in those fields. It comes from greater research that happens at the university. And these universities have professional schools. So, MBA programs, master's programs in engineering and the sciences, laboratories on campus, things like that that really link to research. These universities are usually bigger, larger in size, and they allow you to focus in on a specific field that you may be interested in studying. Okay, if we go to the next slide, there's this thing called conditional admission or joint admission. What is that? Well, some people think that you need to get accepted to the school to go to the U.S. And that is not entirely true. So to explain this easily, rather than reading these bullet points, a lot of schools have programs where you can go study English or prepare academically through what they call a bridge program or a summer program or pre-coursework. And if you complete that, you actually get what they call conditional admission to the university. So in most cases where you would be rejected from the university because you don't have a high enough English score, for example, the school will admit you provided you complete the English program or academy or bridge program that they have at the school. So it's kind of a nice way to get accepted to a school when you may not have the qualifications right away. So these are important things that AAE can help with, linking you with, because they're not always easy to find. They're not published always. So they're good ways for you to learn about different schools and allow you to perhaps get accepted if you complete the English program at the school. Rankings. Rankings. This is an interesting topic. I know many students and parents are concerned about rankings. And, for good reason. I think rankings are important for schools, but they're certainly not the only thing to look at. This slide is just simply telling you there are many sources for rankings. If you look here on the right-hand side of the slide, U.S. News and World Report is the first one. There's many others. These are just some of the ones listed here. Washington Monthly College Rankings, the Times Higher Education. No matter where you read or what you see on the internet, everybody has their own ranking. So the first thing to remember is rankings are kind of arbitrary. By arbitrary, I mean they're up to whoever is doing the ranking. Okay, a school like Harvard, for example, is consistently highly ranked. Okay, but when you're looking at other schools, you have to consider the source. Okay, and so what I like to tell the students is consider what you're studying first of all. Don't just look at the ranking. Look at what you want to study. Is it highly ranked in business or engineering or math or science? That's very important. And consider other factors than just a ranking. Okay, ranking is only a number. Everybody wants to go to a school that's highly ranked, but you have to make sure that the school fits you. By that I mean you need to know where you are academically. Okay, so if you want to apply to the top 10 ranked schools in the U.S. And that's it, then you got to make sure that that's the right fit for you. But I do think rankings are important, but I also want to make the point clear that there's a lot more to schools than a number. And the number, there is not one set of numbers that defines schools. Okay, so it pays to do a little more research than only looking at rankings, but I do know they're important. So what do you need when you are applying to school as an undergraduate? All schools differ, meaning it's not always the same, but some things are very consistent. So if we look here on the right, the first thing is transcripts. That means your academics and what you've done so far as a student. This is really all the work that you've put in up to this point. And that's really important. That's probably, it is the most important thing. The body of work that you've done as a student for the first 12 years of your life, or however long you've been studying, is the most important thing schools look at, okay? And that's in transcripts. They must be sealed and from your school. The second thing is an English test score. We'll talk more about this later, but TOEFL and IELTS, as many of you students know, are the two most common English tests, and are accepted by all schools. So you do need an English score to go to school. It is possible to take the test multiple times, but it's important, especially if you're going to a top school, that you have an English test result. Recommendation letters depends on the school, how many they require, but these are important. They should be from somebody who knows you well. Usually it's a teacher, right? The teacher should know you well. If you've never spoken to the teacher, please don't ask him to write or her to write a letter for you, because it will show. These are really important. These are people that can talk about you. Typically, schools don't have the chance to interview foreign students. Some schools do, but many do not. So what they rely on are your recommendation letters and your essays. That's how they get to know you. So if your recommendation letter says, Mr. Jack is a nice guy and he likes to eat pizza, that's not good enough. They have to really talk about you as a person, and so you have to consider your recommenders very well. The same goes with essays or a personal statement. That's the fourth thing on the list. An essay is, I can't say how important an essay is, especially for international students. It is the way that the school gets to know you. So you have to be extremely careful, put in a lot of work, and let them know who you are. Writing an essay is very different than telling a story. Okay? I work in Vietnam, as I mentioned before. Vietnamese students that I work with all over the country, Ho Chi Minh City, Hanoi, Da Nang, Haiphong, Hue, Can Tho, all the students share some characteristics, and usually the students write very, very well. The English is great or strong, the grammar is strong, but writing an essay is a lot different than telling a story. Okay, and by that I mean you don't want to start your essay saying, you know, it was a real hot night outside, and the sweat was pouring off my head. You know, the traffic was really bad. That stuff is all in a story. Okay, the essay is about you, so you really need to quickly tell the school. You know, you have to answer the question they ask, whether it be about, you know, something you've experienced or whatever the question is. But you have to make sure you're talking about you, because the school is trying to evaluate you and what you're going to bring to the university. And these are so important. And then the other things are, you know, standard application form and then a bank statement to prove that you have the finances to cover. You know, usually or almost always it's the first year of tuition and fees that you have to prove that you can cover. So these are the things you need to apply to school. What are the important steps in researching and the application process? The first step is do your research. I mean, that sounds funny, but you know, the students that I work with, you plan your lives very far in ahead, right? So it should be no different when you're researching a school. I mean, it's so difficult to come in a week or 2 weeks before you want to, you know, go or choose a school and expect things to be easy. You should start at least 1 year, even more beforehand. Learn about schools. Use a company like AAE or an advisor, you know, in your school or somebody else that you're comfortable with to help you do this. Find some schools that you want to apply to. You know, it's important to think about a lot of different things. Is the location important to you? Geography, meaning California or New York or Boston or Florida or Texas? Do you have any preference on that? Do you have any relatives in those areas? Are you interested in a big city or a small community field, like we talked about with liberal arts colleges? Some people, especially in Ho Chi Minh City, which is very large and a lot of traffic and crazy, kind of want to go somewhere quieter and safer. But everyone's different. If you're going to study business like I did, I wanted to be in a city so I could do an internship or a co-op with a big bank. So it's everybody has different things they want. So it's important to choose several schools. All right, you could choose just one if you know that that's the school for you, but it helps to pick a few because you don't always get accepted to all of them. So if you choose the top 5 ranked schools in the world, that to me is not a good strategy because you have to have what they call a reach school, which is one that you believe is difficult for you to get accepted to, but you might try. Sort of middle schools, meaning ones that are you believe you have a good chance of getting accepted to, and then what they call a safety school, which are in case everything doesn't work out and you don't get accepted anywhere else, you have some backup school or a plan, so at least you have somewhere to go. So that's the benefit of choosing multiple schools. Okay. Step 2 is take the tests. You should do this beforehand. We're going to talk about the tests in the next slide, so I won't talk too much right now. But yeah, it's important to take the test well in advance. It says here 8 to 12 months before, and that's probably right. You may want to take the test multiple times if you don't do well. In some countries like Vietnam and Russia, tests are not offered every single week. All right, so you may have to wait 1 or 2 months to retake the tests. So it is important to figure out, first of all, what tests you need to take, and then take them well in advance because you might not get the score you want on the first go-around. Step 3, put together all the documents and submit the application to the schools. Yeah, this typically happens, again, if you're interested in going in the fall, September, let's say September of 2012, the applications are really going out December, January of 2011, so well in advance, okay, because the school gets a lot of them. They have to evaluate them, and they need time to figure out who to accept, and then you have to make that decision once you've been accepted. And the last thing is apply for the visa. Once you get the I-20, which is the document from the school, getting into school is the first step, and it's not an easy step, but getting the visa is also difficult. In many countries in the world, I can speak very knowledgeably about Vietnam, it's not easy. And it requires practice interviews, and that's when working with a company or somebody who can help you is very, very important. AAE, for example, takes great pride and care in practicing with its students for the visa interview. Some students, some of you may not need much help in practicing for the visa interview, but many students, they really need it. The interviews can be difficult. They're done in English. They're done very quickly. They're done in an environment that is not easy to focus. There's a lot of people around. You have to wait. You get a number, and sometimes you wait 2 or 3 hours just to sit there and have somebody talk to you for 5 minutes, and they ask the questions quickly. So it helps to use a company that can help you practice for the visa. One of the things that makes me very, very sad is when students work so hard for 12 years and work so hard to get accepted to a school, and then they don't pass the visa interview. So that is an important step, step 4 in the process. So what do students ask this question a lot. They ask it to me, what are the most important parts of my application? And I think I mentioned this before. Nothing takes the place of what you've done for your whole life leading up to the point of applying to school. So the grades that you've achieved in high school are really important. Alongside that are test results. So test results are also very important. These two things kind of form a barometer or a base level of what you need to get accepted to a school. So again, you can look at how your grades are and what score you might have received on some of the tests that we'll talk about, and those two things will tell you, am I in the range for this school, or should I be looking at different schools, either more competitive or less competitive? So grades and test results are really the most important thing, in my opinion, and I think most people would agree. And I would say grades are more important than the test. The test is important, but the test is one day in your life. They don't replace what you've done up to that point. The second thing I've added here actually is extracurricular activities. Sometimes people forget about these. I'm constantly reminding students that I work with of the importance of being active. Be a leader. And how do you do that? Get involved in things. Get involved in charity. Volunteer your time. Help other people. That's one area. If you're interested in music, if you're interested in sports, if you have hobbies, if you like, book clubs or something, show to these schools that you are a well-rounded leader. Okay? Schools, especially the top schools, are not looking for somebody with the highest test score and that can do 1 million math problems and science. That's not what they're looking for. They want somebody who's going to join the campus, join the community, and be a leader on the campus. And as international students, you guys have a wonderful chance to prove to the schools that you can be a leader. And they're looking for somebody to share their culture. I know for a fact that many, many U.S. schools love Vietnamese students because they go there and they share their culture, so other students learn about Vietnamese culture, and they also can learn from the other students on the campus. So being a leader is really, really important, and you have to demonstrate that in your essays, in your application, and in your recommendation letters. All of these things are important. Essay, personal statement, I've already talked about quite a bit, but that is very important because, as I mentioned, often you don't get a chance to interview with someone. And so the essay is how they learn about you, and recommendation letters. So these 4 areas, I think, are the most important parts of an application. Some of the tests, I'm not sure how familiar everybody is with the tests. TOEFL is a test of English. It stands for Test of English as a Foreign Language. It's actually becoming, there's something called the IBT, which is the internet-based test. That's really overtaking the paper form of the TOEFL. So the TOEFL is a 4-hour test. The sections are reading, listening, speaking, and writing. The score is from 0 to 120. 120 being the highest. All schools differ in terms of what they're looking for from a TOEFL score. You might have, a school like Harvard, I know, is 100 on the IBT, internet-based test. Other schools are lower, 61 or 69 or 79. It depends on the school. But this is an English test. IELTS, what does IELTS stand for? International English Language Testing System. IELTS is really becoming more and more popular. It has actually overtaken TOEFL as the world's most popular English language test. The scoring is different on the IELTS. You actually get a score between 0 and 9, and it's the bands are 0.5, so you could get a score of 5.5 or 6.0 or 6.5. It's 2 hours and 45 minutes in length, and again, listening, reading, writing, and speaking. Both of these English tests, by the way, TOEFL and IELTS, are accepted by almost every single school, interchangeably, TOEFL or IELTS. So people always say, well, is one of them easier than the other, Mr. Jack? You know, should I take the IELTS? There's really no difference. I mean, there's not one that's easier than another. If there were one that was easier than another, then everyone would take that test, and they both wouldn't be in operation. But the fact is, they're both options, and there's not one that's easier than another. So it's really up to you and what you practice for and what's available in your home country. The SAT is the biggest one. SAT is very, very, very important. It doesn't stand for anything. Most people think it stands for something, but it's actually just SAT. It's required by most, but not all, U.S. colleges and universities. So this is a test, a general test that tests critical reading, mathematics, and writing. Those three areas, and your score is based out of 2,400. Okay. Scholarships are often based on SAT scores. So SAT is very important. Scholarships are not only based on the SAT score, but if you're looking for a scholarship, it is important to take the SAT. It's also important just to take the test anyway, because most of them, well, all of the competitive U.S. schools, colleges and universities accept the SAT and require it. So an SAT is really, for me, one of the musts if you are applying to a higher ranked school. The GMAT and GRE are for graduate school. So the GMAT is for management, graduate management admission test. I took the GMAT. I got my MBA previously. It's based out of 800, the score. So that is if you're planning to do a an MBA or business school. The GRE is a graduate school test for other disciplines or fields, not law or medicine, but other. If you're choosing to do a master's in a different field, you know, journalism or something else, you would take the GRE. So these are kind of 5 of the tests that are really, really important. And again, SAT for universities, that's the big one. TOEFL, IELTS for English, and GMAT, GRE are graduate level tests if you're going to do a master's degree. Okay. We talked a little bit about this before. I won't spend too much time on this, but how to apply for a student visa. How does it work? How is the interview done? Again, it's not easy to get a student visa in some countries. Some countries are easier than others, but I know Vietnam very, very well, and it's not easy because it's difficult for the embassy to figure out whether students are choosing to go study or they have some other objective in mind. And so this first point is right. The student must prove to the consular officer that they intend to return to their country of origin after completing their studies. Yes, you do not want to tell the embassy that you're going to the U.S. to get married and have a baby and stay there. That is not a good idea. So you have to prove to them that, you know, you've researched schools, you've done your homework, that you have an objective. So again, that's the second point. You should have a definite academic or professional objective. So what are you going to study? I'm going to study accounting. Well, why are you going to study accounting in the U.S.? Well, I want to go to the U.S. because the U.S. has a system called GAAP, Generally Accepted Accounting Principles. That is the worldwide standard for accounting, how companies produce and report their financial statements. And many countries in the world, like Vietnam, are slowly moving towards GAAP. So if I go study in the U.S. and I learn about GAAP, and maybe I get an internship at a big company like Ernst & Young or PricewaterhouseCoopers, a big accounting firm, then I can come back to Vietnam and use the knowledge that I have about GAAP to get a job here in my home country. That's an objective, right? So you must have a story about what you're trying to do, all right? That's really, really important. The third point is a student must be qualified for the program of study. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of, yeah, I mean, that's obvious, but, you know, the embassy has to believe you that you're, you know, choosing to go there for a specific reason, for a specific program, that you've been accepted, and it makes sense for you. So things like age or your background, all of these things are really, really important. If you're 35 years old and you've already, you know, studied in university in your home country and you've done a master's degree and you've, you know, worked for 7 years and then you want to go learn English in the U.S., that's going to be difficult. So you have to be qualified, meaning you have to have enough qualifications, but you can't be overqualified either. So that's important. The student must be definite about his or her choice of schools. If the student seems uncertain, then a visa will not be issued. That's true. A lot of students here in Vietnam, and may be the case in Russia as well, and other countries, sorry, I was moving my screen around here, you have to be definite about your choice of schools. What does that mean? You have to prove to the visa officer that you've researched. So sometimes students from Vietnam, they have an aunt or uncle that live in Houston or Dallas. These are cities in Texas. And, you know, their uncle told them about one community college, and that's where they want to go. Well, the embassy or the visa official is going to say, well, how did you hear about this school? Right? How did you hear about Houston Community College? How did you hear about Delaware County Community College? You have to make sure that you talk about what is it that is attracting you to that school. So you have to prove to them that you've done research. You've talked to people, you've either met with school officials in your home country, which is not always easy, or you've talked to other students, you've looked at more than one school, that it's the right school for you, that it has the right program. If you want to study accounting, then it may not be a good idea to choose a liberal arts school. It has to be a fit for you. And the last thing is the most important one, and that's finances. Studying in the U.S. Is not always cheap. We'll talk about scholarships in the next slide, but you do have to prove that your parents or somebody is able to support you financially. The last thing that the embassy wants is for somebody to arrive in the U.S. and not be able to afford their school or their living expenses and be stuck. Okay, so people don't realize that they're looking out for you. They don't want people to arrive in the U.S. and not be able to afford their studies. So you must be able to prove that you have money in the bank, your parents or someone in your family, and they can support you. And this is true. Students should not and may not use employment as a means of support while in the U.S. The fact is there may be some opportunity to support yourself and some of your living expenses through employment, but that can never cover you know, the tuition fees and all the expenses that you incur while you're at school. So the student visa application interview is a big, big step in what you are doing. Okay, the magic S word, scholarship. I know that everybody wants scholarship. Everyone's interested in scholarship. How do I get one? You know, can you find one for me, Jack? Look, it's scholarships. They're available. There are a lot of them out there. So that's the first thing to realize, that if you think that you have no chance or there's no opportunity for you, please don't think like that. So many schools have scholarships available. It takes some effort, it takes some research and hard work to find them, but they're out there. And the fact is an international student from certain countries that may be underrepresented at the school, these scholarships are even more common. I don't want to speak for specific schools and what their policies are, but I do know that they use scholarships to attract students from countries that may not have a lot of students on the campus. So you have to realize from Russia or from Vietnam or Turkey or some other country that that's a real strength that you have. Being from one of these countries is a strength. There's not that many students in schools in the U.S. from some of your countries. And so you have to be able to use that to your advantage. You also need to do well academically. A lot of parents come in and say, well, I want a scholarship because my son is good at English. No, it's not. You have to prove yourself academically. And as I said before, the SAT is quite important, as are your grades, as are your extracurricular activities, and the fact that you are diverse. You're from a different country. You're different from many of the students in the U.S. What is a teaching assistantship position? These are for graduate programs. To my knowledge, and again, I can follow up if one of the students on the call is interested in this. You know, if you're doing a PhD, some master's programs, but now it's moving more to strictly PhD. But you have an opportunity to work as a teaching assistant. And in these cases, the school will pay you a small stipend and also cover your tuition. So it's also very, very hard work, though. But this is a way that many people pay for their PhDs and some master's programs. But again, if you're interested in this, I would ask that you contact me and we can talk more about this. But it can't be, you actually have to be accepted to the school first and prove that you can pay. If you do get this, it's an added benefit, but you can't say, well, I'm looking at a teaching assistant position as the only way that I can go to the school. You actually apply after you've been accepted in almost all cases. So that's a little bit about teaching assistantships, but again, please contact me if you want more information on that. Can I work while I study? Well, usually, no. You can't just go out and get a job, you know, at a store or something. You can often get jobs on campus, so you can work and provide some small living expense money for yourself in the library or the cafeteria or helping an office in the school. That's possible. Many schools have co-op, not many, but some schools have co-op programs where you actually work as part of your curriculum and you can get paid while you do that. So you can do those things if they're part of your study curriculum, but your visa doesn't allow you to just go out and get a job and get a paycheck. Now there are ways to make some money. You can do things creatively, babysit or do other things. But again, working while you study, that's not the point of why you're going to the U.S. The reason why you're going is to study. But I do, schools realize that people need some extra money for their living expenses. And being able to get jobs on campus is a good way to do it. As an international student, you may want to look in the international student office, international programs office. They often need students to reply to people in their home countries that might speak the language. So consider your skills that you have and start looking early. So if you get accepted to a school and you arrive, try your best if that's important to you. Can I stay in the U.S. after I graduate? Well, there is something called OPT, Optional Practical Training, and you can stay in the U.S. for up to 1 year if you are working or doing something within your field of study. So that gives you flexibility for up to a year. There are certain fields, a few, that are very, very specialized where the OPT has been extended to 27 months. But again, that's very, very specific fields that the U.S. has a need for. And you can contact me about some of those, but they're probably not something that you would be suited for or studying in university. These are very, very specific fields and jobs that the U.S. has a need for. But in general, you can think 1 year, I can stay in the U.S. after I graduate. In certain rare cases, you can get a company that would sponsor you to stay longer. But that is a difficult process, and it's not getting any easier, and it's costly. So companies are not always willing to do that when they can hire somebody locally. and not have to go through all the cost and paperwork. So this is a little bit about scholarships and work. Scholarships, one last thing about scholarships is, you have to, first of all, do your research, plan well in advance, but also consider the school. If you're looking for a top school, a highly ranked school that everyone applies to from your home country and, in a certain city or location, do you think that the scholarships are going to be more or less? So sometimes you might have to look at some smaller schools in different areas that maybe don't have as many students from your country, and that's where you have to be creative and you consider. And when you work with a company like AAE or somebody else that can help you connect to the schools and knows about scholarships, it's very, very helpful. So again, you can't always get everything that you want. So scholarships are very important, but sometimes you may have to choose a school that may not be your first choice, but is willing to offer more in the way of scholarship money. Common mistakes students make when applying to university. I think I've talked about several of these already. So I'll just mention a couple more briefly here. The first one is understanding your strengths and your weaknesses. That's really important. I think in anything in life, whatever you're doing, know what you're good at, know what you're not good at, kind of know what the school is looking for. As I told you, being from Russia or Vietnam or any country is a strength because they don't have that many students from your countries. So understand that. So maybe in your essay you want to talk about some cultural things that are important. So you have to consider your strengths and your weaknesses. What might not be your strongest point in your application, and how do you overcome that? So understand your strengths and your weaknesses. Some students, they don't play on their strengths. I read their essays and I say, well, wait a minute, you're from Vietnam. This essay could have been written by somebody down the street from me in the U.S. So it's important to understand that. Know what you're good at, and know what is going to give you the best chance to get accepted to the school that you're looking at. I talked about essays already, so I'm not going to go into the details more, but again, writing essays, really, really important. How to structure an essay, how to make it convincing, how to stick to the word count, okay? Don't go way over the word count because they won't read it. It'll get cut off. And if you go a lot lower than the word count, you're not using the space that they're providing you. So knowing how to write essays is really, really important in your applications. I mentioned this one too, but creating lists of schools. It takes some time. You have to use some strategy to come up with a list of schools that you're looking at. I've seen students, apply to 8 top-level schools, and then they got rejected at all 8, and they thought they were just, some people have a inflated sense of who they are. Again, you have to look at your grades and your test scores and consider, okay, what is a good school for you? And you have to have a range of schools, high, medium, low. If you don't do that, you might get stuck. I've also seen it on the opposite side, where people they underestimate themselves. And they think, well, I'm from an international country, and maybe I'm not confident, and I don't think I could do well in this tough environment. The fact is, Vietnamese students and Russian students, students from all over the world, you guys really work hard to get where you are. And I admire every single day how difficult it is. I'm also a teacher. And one thing is, you might not think that you're confident enough or you can succeed, but what usually happens is that you guys go to the schools and they say, wow, you're the top students. You've worked so hard to get where you are that going to the next level, there's no reason why you should not be successful. So I've also seen it where students, they just choose a lot of schools that are below them and not good enough. So again, putting together a good list of schools is really important. Scholarships and financial aid, we talked about this already. I've seen students just, they just skip over or ignore the fact that certain schools offer scholarships because they're focused on the big school and the big city and the top ranking. Again, you have to kind of prioritize what's important to you. Scholarships require research. They require a lot of following up with schools, and it takes some time. Financial aid is a different story. There's a difference between scholarship and financial aid. Scholarship is based on what? It's based on merit. It's based on you. Does the school like you? How are your test scores? You know, do they think you're going to be a good leader? Financial aid is about how much you need, about your family. What can they afford to pay? And that's an important thing. Certainly not all schools offer financial aid, but some really, really good schools do. Often they're the private liberal arts colleges that we talked about before. So that's important. What forms do you need to fill out to get financial aid? How much can you get? So there's a lot of things that, you know, some students just don't even realize it. They say, well, I'm only looking for a scholarship. And they might get a small one or not one at all, and they say, okay, well, that's it. I can't go, or I'm going to choose a different school. But don't forget about something called financial aid. That is based on need. And the last thing is planning ahead. We talked about this at the very beginning, so I guess it makes sense for me to end with it too. Plan ahead. I see too many students that treat this like, you know, they're going to the mall or going to a movie. You don't do this the day before or the week before or even the month before. Choosing the next 4 years or 2 years of your life and studying in a country like the U.S. takes time. There are a lot of things to do, a lot of forms and applications and essays and looking for scholarship. So planning ahead will help you, and also for taking tests. Okay, so planning ahead is probably the most frequent mistake that I see from students, and it's sad because you work, as I said, you work really hard to get to this point. So it shouldn't be any different in the next few years. Okay, I have talked a lot. The last slide is a little bit about AAE. Access American Education is the company where I work. I'm really, really happy to work there. I used to work on Wall Street. I spent 6.5 years at Citibank. I worked in New York City and Hong Kong and San Francisco. And then I came and started to do this, helping kids like you guys get accepted to schools, find scholarships, and it's really, really rewarding for me personally. I like being in a developing country because I think it's fun to see how kids, well, it's fun to see how the whole country develops, but I do like the fact that so many students are choosing to improve their lives by studying in a place like the U.S. because I really believe in it. I believe that the U.S. has the best education in the world. I believe it, not just because I went there, but I also did a master's degree in Australia. I did an MBA in the U.S. too, but the practical experience that you get, not only theory, but the practical learning experience is something that puts the U.S. Over the top, in my opinion. But AAE itself, again, we're headquartered in Philadelphia in the United States. We have had an office in Vietnam for 3 years in Ho Chi Minh City. We work with well over 100 schools at this point, all types of different schools, high schools, community colleges, universities, master's degree programs. We're certified by the American International Recruitment Council, or AIRC. That's a very important certification that takes about 2 years to get. And it basically says that our company is an ethical or fair or honest provider of services to kids like you guys. You can trust when you work with me at AAE. Again, we are not throwing schools at you. My motto is, it's up to you, you know. Whatever, we can help you find schools, but the decision is up to you where you want to study. And I will always look for the best scholarship possible for you. And I believe if we continue to do that as a company, we will be successful. So we're a fairly small company. I'm based in Ho Chi Minh City. I have a counterpart named Kate Liapestina. She is Russian, and she is based in Philadelphia. And we are full of people with experience in U.S. education and a desire to help you succeed. So I hope that you found this to be helpful. And if you have further questions, first of all, we have a wonderful website that's been designed called virtualcounselor.com. It's been set up specifically to help students in different countries get the advice that they need to study in the U.S. So you will get in touch with a qualified counselor that will help you. So some of the things I talked about tonight have been quick. It hasn't been a very long presentation, but these things will hopefully give you an overview of studying in the U.S. But Virtual USA Counselor is where you can really dig in and plan your future. So I urge you to visit that site. And if you're interested, to sign up for some counseling sessions because they will be helpful to you. You see my name here, my email address. I have Skype, or as they say in Vietnam, Skype. I talk with students all the time on Skype, at night, in the morning, wherever. We're happy to provide advice, and you see Kate's information as well. So that's the end of the presentation, and I'm willing to open it up to any questions at this point.
Jack?
Yes.
I'm not sure that you can see the questions at the chat room.
I'm
Also,
trying to find the chat room.
it's
chat.
right now you have your Gmail on the screen, and it's actually recording that. So if you can go back to the presentation.
Okay.
The chat room
right.
is down on. It should be in the sidebar to the right.
All right.
There have been a number of questions asked during the presentation, so I don't know if you can see.
Yeah, I see them now. Sorry, I wasn't paying attention. All right. So thanks for that.
Sure.
Chris. So let's see. Okay. The question, how good does my English have to be to study in the U.S.? That's a good question. Well, it depends on the school you want to go to. As I mentioned before, you know, every school has different requirements. So again, if you're looking for a very highly ranked school or a very specific program, your English will have to be relatively high, and that's judged based on your TOEFL or IELTS score. But if you're looking to go to a community college or a different type of school, your English doesn't have to be that great. Now, you need some level of English to pass the visa interview. So, but the point of going to a community college or to one of these English programs is to improve your English. So, again, don't feel like you have to be fluent or extremely skilled in English to go to the U.S. It depends on the school. Okay. How good does, oh, do I have to be fluent? No, you don't have to be fluent, but you do have to be able to converse in English, particularly with the visa officials. Question, here's another one. What are the requirements to enter master's and MBA programs? These differ. I would say it depends on the type of program. There's certain master's and MBA programs that will accept you without a GMAT or a GRE, very few. Most of them, as I mentioned, require either GRE or the GMAT. The top MBA programs, that's an area that I'm familiar with, also require work experience. So you do need typically about 5 to 7 years of work experience to enter a top business school. So again, it depends on the program. But usually they're looking for good grades, in high school and university. You do need a university degree to go to a master's or an MBA program. And then it depends on the program, but often a test and work experience. Do you have to live on campus as a freshman? Well, no. I mean, it depends on the school. In many campuses or many universities, the answer is yes. You are required to live on campus. But some schools don't even have on-campus housing. So you might, in many community colleges, you might live in a homestay, meaning you live with a host family. Or you may choose to live with a relative to save on costs. So again, it's hard. It depends on the school. But there are many, many schools where you can choose to live with a relative if you have family in the U.S. to save money and to feel more comfortable. Or you can live with a host family instead of living on campus. But in those schools where they do have on-campus housing, I don't know any that allow the freshmen to live off campus in their own apartment. I don't know any. There may be a few, but not many. So hopefully that answers that question. If you study in the U.S., can you also get visas for your spouse and kids? It's not an easy question. It depends. Usually, yes, but there's a lot of circumstances. I think if you have more specific question on this, it's best to contact me individually because there's a lot of requirements that come into effect. I've seen people fail getting visas for their spouses and kids. I've seen many people pass. It's not, usually the answer is yes. If it's straightforward and you have a clear story and a clear career path and what you're trying to do, but you also have to provide for your spouse and kids. So there's a question on finances. So it's difficult for me to say, yeah, you definitely can get the visa for your wife or your husband and your children because there are some things that they look at differently. And the biggest one is finances. But if you are able to provide for your family and prove that, then it is not that difficult. What are some of the differences between studying in a Vietnamese university versus studying in a U.S. university? The number one difference to me and what I've heard over and over again from students is this idea of practical training and experience. That is something that the U.S., as I mentioned, is known for. And Vietnamese schools, I teach here, and what I hear from students is it's a lot of theory and reading things in a book, which is fine. The quality of the teachers here is very good, but ultimately when you're going to a U.S. university, you get a lot more hands-on and practical training, and that can help you in a number of different fields for your career. One other thing I might say is this idea of becoming well-rounded. In a U.S. school, there's an emphasis, as I talked about, on the liberal arts. So in many schools, you will spend the first year or even 2 years taking subjects in things that you may not think you need or you may not like philosophy or theology and psychology and literature and history. They may not be related to your major, but the idea is that you'll become a well-rounded candidate after you graduate from school. So that's another difference in a U.S. university. So those are just two of the bigger differences. And I think, there's some smaller things that we talked about. A lot more opportunities to, join clubs and do different activities and try new things that hopefully will create this idea of, a leader in the future and, add to your sort of cultural awareness. So those are some of the main differences. Yeah, the classes in the U.S. are, in Vietnam, it depends a little bit on the school, but, in the U.S. often, I know for certain having studied in Australia as well, a main difference between the U.S. and the U.K. and Australia is, in terms of classes, how they're set up is oftentimes there's a lot more regular grading or observation. So, in the UK or Australia, frequently it's one test at the end of the course, or maybe a midterm, and that's it. The US is frequently, there's small quizzes, there's interactions, there may be, laboratory projects, depending on the class. So there's a lot more frequent, monitoring of how you're doing. So I can't speak for every country, but I do know that the classes in the U.S. might be a little bit different in the sense that you can't just fall asleep for 4 months and then show up for the final. So that's one thing that I would mention about classes being a little bit differently structured. Certainly from the UK and Australia, and maybe from your home countries as well. I see a question here from Russia. I'm from Russia and I want to study in New York City. Can you recommend me some good schools? Well, New York City is full of good schools. New York State itself has a system called SUNY, State University of New York. There's about 64 campuses, known for being some of the best schools in the U.S. at a low price point. So there's a lot of SUNY schools around New York City that are very, very good research institutions. They also have community colleges as well. So if you're thinking about New York in general, I think you have to think SUNY first. That's the largest institution in the whole U.S. In terms of number of students. So that would be my first recommendation. And it depends on what you want to study in New York. Okay. Berkeley College, we mentioned before, for liberal arts in New York City. And the two big schools, I lived in New York for 5 years, Columbia on the upper part of Manhattan and NYU in the southern part are the two most famous schools in New York City, if you're looking at rankings alone. But, again, I think as an international student, you have to consider cost, and the quality of education you're going to get. And to me, the answer to that is SUNY around New York. Again, there's so many schools that you can choose from. So hopefully, if you contact us, we'll give you more specific schools. But that gives you some indication. Here's another question from a student about internships. Is it easy to get them? Are internships paid? Well, it depends on your school. Often many schools have internship offices or career offices and programs. So I would say it's fairly easy to find internships. Fairly easy, meaning most schools offer them or will help you find one. When I was a student, I did a couple different internships. One at a company called Prudential, a big banking and insurance company. And then I did another one at a small brokerage company. So both of them were in my field of finance. But those were fairly easy to get. Now, one of them was paid and one of them was not. So again, my answer would be it's fairly easy to get internships. It's not fairly easy to get paid. It's possible. But you have to consider what an internship is for, and that's for experience. That's to put on your resume, build your resume, and help you get a job later. So you have to consider what's important. I would also mention that there's a couple schools that are famous for what they have as a co-op program or internship program that is a part of the curriculum. And we mentioned one before called Drexel. Another one is the University of Cincinnati. These schools are famous in the U.S. for including internships as part of their curriculum of study. So you would study, and then in a certain semester you would only work, and that is part of your program. And so you will definitely have an internship, and it will definitely be paid. So you have to look at the school and look at the type of program they have. And it also depends on your major and what you're choosing to study. Here's a question from India. Do you have to get master's degree before applying to PhD? Is it true that you can study for PhD for free? Usually, almost always, you need a master's degree before applying to the PhD. Occasionally, I think I know 2 or 3 programs. Again, I don't have all the information in front of me right now, so I'd be happy to follow up with you on this. They will admit you for a master's degree and a PhD. You can study a PhD immediately following that. But in general, you need a master's degree before applying to a PhD program. Can you study for the PhD for free? As I talked about with the assistantships, yes, but that can't be the, you have to also prove that you can pay. So, a lot of students from China, India, Vietnam, all over the world study their PhD for free by doing assistantships. But doing an assistantship is very, very hard work, and it takes a lot of time. And the school relies on you to do that for research reasons. So yes, you can study the PhD for free, but you also have to prove that you can get accepted and pay for, at least the first year on your own. So hopefully that answers that question. Master's degree programs in general, they're a little bit more complicated, so it depends on where you're choosing to study. So this question, Adalti from India, I'd love to contact you further and help you out in more detail. Here's a question from Turkey. I want Access American Education to help me get into a U.S. university. How do I do it? Where can I schedule an appointment with you? Can we speak on Skype so I can be with my family at home? Absolutely. Being in Turkey, just because we have an office in Philadelphia in the U.S. and an office in Ho Chi Minh City does not mean that we can't help you. The Virtual USA Counselor site is a great way to get set up and schedule some one-on-one appointments with a counselor. Again, our counselors are trained and they're able to help you. So the first step would be to contact either Kate or myself, or go through, with our emails that we listed here, or go through the Virtual USA Counselor site. That's why it's set up to help you. If you want to speak on Skype so you can be with your family, absolutely. I do that a lot of times with, many of the students I work with are in the countryside. They're in small towns, and, there's no chance for them to get to Ho Chi Minh City to my office. So that's how we operate as a company. We're small, we're nimble, and we will meet with you at any chance that we get. We're happy to help you. Okay, so I think that is the end of the questions. It was a good list of questions. Hopefully I was able to answer them to the best that I can, and if I didn't answer them, I'm certainly able to talk with you more after this at a later date. And I know Kate would too. Both of us really, really enjoy this kind of stuff. So again, thank you very much for your time, and I hope to hear from you soon. Thank you again.